Well, if it's Saturday after a PLE here on the PW Torch, it's Wrestling Night in America. I'm not Greg Parks. I'm Nate Lindberg, one of the co-hosts of PWT Talks NXT, but I'm here to fill in for Greg tonight. Greg, last minute, was unable to do Clash at the Castle, so texted me or sent me a message on the X, as we're now calling it, asking if I could fill in for him. And thankfully my plans today got canceled, so I was able to do that. So actually very glad I could be here with everybody to talk about Clash at the Castle. And speaking about being here to talk about Clash at the Castle, finally, after weeks now, weeks we've been trying to get together and do a podcast. Kevin was already lined up to be the co-host tonight, so fate brought us together, and here we are together, Kevin Cattani, Dr. Kevin P. Cattani, to talk all about Clash of the Castle. Kevin, thanks for joining us tonight, man.
Nate, I'm excited to finally connect with you. And of course, it's on Greg's show. But however fate brings us together, that's what I'm looking for.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. Very glad we could do this. So, first things first. Before we get into everything, I'm gonna run down the card in a minute, as Greg usually does, and then we'll get into everything. But first, Clash at the Castle. Thumbs up, thumbs down, thumbs in the middle.
Thumbs up. Thumbs up. And I know we'll get into it. I am still sitting mouth agape at the conclusion of the show. But even with that in mind, I thought it was a very entertaining show.
Yeah, I also give it a thumbs up as well. I actually had a friend of mine stop over shortly before Clash started, and he ended up watching a couple matches with me. He is not a wrestling fan at all. He was when he was a little kid. Like we started talking about, he remembered Dusty, and he remembered, like Ric Flair and things like that. He's a couple years older than me. I think like 4 or 5 years older than me. And he kind of stopped watching before the Attitude Era, but even he was like getting sucked into the Cody AJ match and the women's tag match. He had to take off before the tag match finished, but still, like I think even that just goes to say something, when you're able to get a fan that kind of looks at wrestling as like that's for kids, and kind of get him sucked in. So cool. Glad we're on the same page with the thumbs up. Let us know in the comments as well if you like it. Such where we are here on YouTube, where you can we've got the chat going on for the YouTube stream. So and if you are listening afterwards, audio show or something like that, that's let I'm going to read out the some of the comments so you don't feel excluded. I don't want to exclude anybody here on Wrestling Night in America. We have a comment here from Dean Hacker, who says that they really liked Clash the Castle. And that it was. He also said that it's a build up to SummerSlam, Drew versus Punk. I think that's excuse me. I think that's where they're going. I know that I saw a post on Reddit earlier in the day that Punk was hanging out in Scotland. So I had a feeling he may wind up showing up here on the show, but I'm also like, I know he's been traveling with the company and stuff, so maybe he was just there to be there. Um, all right, so let me run down the card real quick. We just lost Kevin. I don't know what happened, so hopefully Kevin comes back. I'm sure he will. Um, Let me run down the card real quick. We had, oh, there he is. All right, we lost him for a minute, but he's back. He's back. We've got our. I guess I'll start at the beginning of the show. We had Cody Rhodes versus AJ Styles in an I Quit match for the undisputed title. That saw Cody go over and retain his title in 28 minutes or so. We had a triple threat for the women's tag team championship: Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill versus Isla Dawn and Alba Fyre versus Shayna Baezler, Zoey Stark. That saw the team of Dawn and Fyre going over in 12 minutes to become the women's tag titles, which is really cool to see happen for them, especially for Isla Dawn, for a couple different reasons. We'll get into that when we get there. Sami Zayn versus Chad Gable for the IC title. Sami retained in 22 minutes. We also had Bayley versus Piper Niven for the WWE Women's title. Bayley retained in 14 minutes. And our main event, Damian Priest versus Drew McIntyre for the World Heavyweight Championship. And Priest retained in approximately 20 minutes, where we saw a little bit of a screwy finish where CM Punk ruined the not the cash in, ruined the title opportunity for Drew McIntyre. I'm not sure how I feel about the finish, to be honest. Like, I didn't think Drew was going to necessarily win the title here. I was really torn. Like, there was part of me that was like, it'd be really cool for him to win in Scotland. They didn't, he didn't win the title there last year, so let the fans go home happy. Give him a win in Scotland was definitely kind of on one hand, and then on the other hand, I'm like, oh, Damian Priest still a new champion. Triple H tends to like having long-term champions, so I didn't think he might switch the belt off of Priest just yet. But also, Priest, like I said, he's a new champion, so it's still pretty early into his run. So it also didn't feel like it was time for him to necessarily lose the title, at least for me. I know I've been reading mixed reviews about what people think is Priest as champion. Personally, I like it. I think he's been able to pull it off. Maybe a controversial opinion, I don't know, but I like what Priest has been doing. So at least this was a way to get out of Drew winning the title. He still technically gets, actually no, sorry, he doesn't get a win. I was thinking it was a DQ. It wasn't a DQ. So he still doesn't necessarily get a win here, but at least he didn't it wasn't a clean finish. He had a reason that he lost due to some interference. So I don't know. I'm okay with it. It certainly builds to Punk versus to McIntyre, presumably at SummerSlam. So there we go. But I don't know. What did you think about? Oh, sorry. Before I throw to you, the match itself I thought was fantastic. A lot of great action in the match. I think Priest looked like a champion. I mean, obviously, McIntyre got his stuff in, and they're back and forth. But I think Priest was really able to hold his own here. I thought he looked strong, against Drew, even though it was a screwy finish and he won the title that way. It's still okay. He's a heel. He can now brag about beating Drew McIntyre in his homeland. So I think it is going to help elevate Priest. So, like I said, I liked the match. A little on the finish, but let me know what you thought, Kevin.
Yeah, I thought the match was fantastic too. I as I was trying to go back through my memory banks, this was one of the first truly heavyweight championship matches I think we've seen in a while between just two really big guys, right? Like, Cody's a big guy, but he's not, Drew and Damian they just look mighty and big. And so I really appreciated the heavyweight feel to it all. And I thought, I had heard rumblings all week that Punk might show up, and I was really hoping that Todd Martin's funneling of energy on the fix this week of Punk not being there to screw it all up was going to be the energy that was put into the air, because we got through a 20-minute match with no Judgment Day interference, and even though they were technically barred from the ring because of the outcome of Friday's match, when has that ever stopped the bloodline and various groups like that? And so I thought, to get through a whole match without any of those shenanigans, just to have Punk come in and do it was just really sour. And I agree with, let me see, I want to make sure I get his name right. Andrew made a fabulous comment related to the fact that Drew, certainly it's hard to understand him being the heel in all of this, considering that Punk is the one that's continuing to be the dastardly guy in all of this. So I'll be interested to see how they frame the SummerSlam match, if that's where they're building to. But again, I thought, and I was super behind Drew beating Roman this time last year, and I was super behind him beating Damian, and I'm just gutted for him because I thought if the table wasn't necessarily set for him to beat Roman last year, I thought it was much more set this year, and so I'm just gutted for him because he had the crowd eating out of the palm of his hand.
No, he absolutely did. I do, I do feel bad for Drew. It would have been a really cool moment for him and his career to win the title in his homeland,
Especially after being inducted into the Scottish Wrestling Hall of Fame. I mean, it would have been the
exactly.
perfect icing on the cake.
Yeah, no, exactly. It really would have. So I mean, like I said, there's a big part of me that really does wish Drew, went over here. In a way, I mean, I guess it kind of makes sense, but especially if they have other plans for the heavyweight title. Um, but yeah, it would have been. It certainly would have been a feel good moment. Um, for us and for Damian Priest, or not Damian Priest, Drew McIntyre rather. I was reading a comment that said Damian Priest, but for everybody, if he did wind up going over. Um, let's kind of go over some of these comments here. So we were talking earlier about what we like, if we thumbs down, thumbs in the middle, or whatever, thumbs up, thumbs down, or thumbs in the middle rather. Sean says just the two matches that he saw, thumbs down, but he's getting off because he's got to finish the show. So we got that. But thank you for thank you for your input so far, Sean. Appreciate it, man. Always good to hear from you. We've got Derek saying that it was a fun show, served as a nice table setter for SummerSlam. I agree with that. Azan comes in just saying, "Drew, screw Drew," and that Damian couldn't get the job done. Damian could not get the job done on his own again. So there we go. Derek also comes back in saying, "Amen to Priest," and I think that was in response to what I said about Priest kind of holding his own as a champion. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's what it was in response to for when I saw the comment come in. He had a great performance. And he turned a missed spot into a central component of the match story, pro level move. I think he's talking about when he the spot where he got hung up in the ropes. I
Yeah, that
went
looks
back.
scary.
It did. I went back and I watched it a couple times. Like I replayed it a couple times, and I think they even replayed it too. But I'm not 100% sure if it was if he did it on purpose or not. I think they played it off like it was an accident.
Oh, it
But
looked very accidental because
well,
I've seen him hit that move before, and I think as awkward as the ropes can be, I think even with significant practice, that would have been really hard to, because he did it off the middle and was trying to then somersault over the top, and I
yeah.
think he just 1 foot hit and 1 foot didn't, and it just flipped him right over.
No, 100%. That's actually what I was going to say because it looked like he was it basically looked like his foot kind of stayed down, hung up on the second rope, and I'm going back and watching it. I couldn't decide if he did that on purpose or if like you said it got caught. So I don't know. I'm gonna go under the assumption it was an accident, but like if we find out like down the road it was it was intentional, I wouldn't necessarily be surprised either. Um, but I think it worked. I mean, it turned out to be a great central spot in the match. I'm sure where he was selling the leg so much, I'm sure actually we'll find out sooner rather than later. And they may even be talking about it in the press conference. I've got it on in the background, but I haven't really been paying attention to it. They might have even mentioned or will mention there, whether or not he's injured or not. But so I'm sure we'll find out sooner rather than later if it was work or they,
Well, nonetheless, I'm sure it hurt. Like, he
yeah, oh,
very well could have
100%.
been upselling how bad it was hurt as he was limping, but provided that it was an accident, I have no doubt that did
Oh,
not feel good.
oh yeah, no, 100%. The knee doesn't supposed the knee's not supposed to bend that way.
No.
So yeah, no, for sure, for sure. Um, So Derek chimes in saying that it was an accident, unlike Jade, who got rattled and rushed through like a bulldozer. He regained his composure and did regained his composure and did not his place. I think we missed a word there, but that's okay. I know what you're trying to say. He regained his composure and then kind of just was able to make it work. Jade loses his place. Derek just chimed back in, said
Oh,
loses place. Um, but yeah, Jade. We'll talk about that match when we get there. Jade, she had a bit of a botch trying to jump over the top rope, do a springboard. I think probably a clothesline or something off the top rope after a hot tag, and she missed. I think she recovered all right, but it was definitely noticeable. Um, but yeah, anything. I know we haven't really officially said we were talking about the main event yet, but we talked quite a bit already about the main event. Um, anything that you want to throw in that we haven't yet?
No, I mean, like I said, I think we acknowledge that the two men told a really good story. I thought that in through the middle of the match, um, the near falls really like they had people like very much eating into both sides, and I think that's a credit to both men who worked really hard to give the crowd a great final match. Um, and so yeah, I think like I said, I think the fan in me is gutted for Drew. Um, I get it, but boy, this match between Punk and Drew better tear the roof off of Cleveland Browns Stadium because they've been breadcrumbing this for a while now, and they've made it through a very significant injury for Punk. Um, and I was really even thinking that if this is where they were supposed to finally face off at SummerSlam, to me it seems like a belt on the line would have added even more to it. But maybe this is a case where they don't feel like the belt is going to help, or the story doesn't need the belt to help it. And so if that's the case, like I said, my whole motto since Triple H has taken over is let him cook, and he has yet to really let us down in the long term. So I'm not worried here, but the fan in me was really hoping to see Drew's hand raised at the end, especially with the full pipe and drum entrance. I was like, oh,
Oh,
here we go, let's do this. And but other than that, like I said, I thought it was really good. Certainly now it'll be interesting to see how this all carries over into TV this week, because I get the impression that Punk is probably ready or very close to being ready to take some bumps. Because if you noticed, um, there's no reason why Drew should not have decked him in the corner, and he really just sort of forced him into the corner and even hesitated a little bit. So he might not yet be cleared to take any live bumps, but he's got to be darn close. So.
yeah, no, and if actually I noticed too when he pushed Drew before he jumped out of the ring, he pushed him with the arm. I think it was his right arm, but he pushed him with the arm that was hurt. So I'm wondering if he did that as like a hey, this arm's fine, as kind of
Sure.
if some people know. I don't know, maybe he did, maybe he didn't, but at least I did notice that. Um, I'm hoping he's healed up and everything. For somebody that did not necessarily want to see Punk come back to WWE, I feel like he's really proven himself backstage so far. Anyway, like we always, at least my impression of Punk was always that he was problem child, I guess, backstage. And where I'm sure or not sure, I from everything that I have heard anyway, he can be sometimes. That was really my biggest reason not like to not have him come back to WWE. But so far he's kept his nose clean. He seemed to be really involved down in NXT. The reports of him wanting to take over for Shawn Michaels when Shawn Michaels inevitably, gives up running the reins down there, which I think is fantastic, a fantastic spot for him with the wrestling mind that he has. Um, so so yeah, really glad to see CM Punk back in the mix, and I'm really looking forward to their match at SummerSlam. Drew's done a great job of keeping the feud going while Punk's been out, and that's not always easy to do. Have a one-sided feud. So, and I think he's done a great job, kind of just throwing little jabs at Punk here and there throughout the month. So, um, all right, before we continue, a little housekeeping. A little while ago, Kevin brought up Todd Martin and Wade Keller's show, The Fix, VIP, pwtorch.com/go VIP. You can see, if you're watching here on YouTube, you can see a nice little graphic up on the screen showcasing some of the shows, including right in the center there, the fix with Todd Martin. There's also all the way over to the left is a show NXT 8 years back with a couple PWT Talks NXT mainstays, though Tom doesn't join us much anymore. But Kelly and Tom at NXT 8 years back, you can talk about what's going on in NXT that long ago, 8 years ago. And they also talk about movies too, for some reason. I don't know why. I do know why. I just, just spitting here. So yeah, go VIP. A lot of great content, including a VIP after shows for PLEs. I know one's being recorded. I don't know who's on the show. I'm sure it's Wade and two other people, but I don't know who those two other people are. We'll also do roundtables after NXT PLEs as well. We weren't able to do one for Battlegrounds due to some scheduling issues, but that's not the norm. Normally we'll get one done. We'll get one done. All right. With all of that out of the way, let's go to our next match here: Bayley versus Piper Niven for the women's title. Bayley went, like I said earlier. Bayley went over 14 minutes to retain the belt. I thought this was a really fun match. We had those spots with Chelsea Green coming in, and trying to insert herself into the match, getting kicked out by the referee, trying to come back while wearing, I think it was a Rey Mysterio mask. It was a luchador mask. I didn't get a super good look at it, or my memory is failing me, which that's actually probably more
Both
accurate.
of those could be true.
Yeah, both of those could be true. And I mean, it was very clearly Chelsea Green. I mean, same clothes and everything, but of course, Wade Barrett's on commentary like, "Who is this? Who's this masked woman?"
I did laugh, and I'm sorry I don't remember the source from Facebook, but there was a Facebook post of a screen grab of her like at ringside in the mask with the like, "Who could this masked person be?" And it made me laugh harder than it probably should have because I was watching it in real time. But
yeah, no, exactly. Azan just comes in with saying that it was a Rey Mysterio mask, so my memory did actually serve me. So there we go. I like that. We also had Kevin Toms looks like asking if we're opening up VIP for callers. That's a Wade question. I to be honest, I don't know. I wish I had an answer for you. I don't, unfortunately, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. All right, but as I was saying, yeah, Bayley versus Piper. It's easy to sidetrack me. It's very easy. ADHD to the max here. But yeah, Bayley, Piper Niven. We had Chelsea Green. Trying to insert herself a couple times, coming back with the mask. Piper Niven, I thought, got a great reaction in her, in her home country of Scotland here. I think this is a huge moment for her, being able to challenge for the women's title in Scotland. Yeah, like I said, I think this was just a solid match all around. There's some great near falls for Piper Niven. She looked very strong. There's a couple moments where I thought she may wind up winning. It would have been nice to see one of the two singles titles maybe change hands. Obviously, we saw, Isla Dawn and Alba Fyre get their flowers there, but I think a lot of people thought that we may have seen one of the two top titles change hands here. But like I said, thumbs up for me for this match. Kevin, what about you?
yeah, I like the match a lot too. I felt bad because, and I don't think it was my TV, but the crowd, this kind of seemed to be the kind of dip. Like the crowd was hot for Piper, but like Bayley's entrance did not sound very energetic from the crowd. Now, I'm sure she knew that going in, that the hometown folks were going to get the bigger reactions, and that's part of it. But I felt bad because I think the show had a pretty good pace. I thought all the matches were given time to do what they needed to do without sort of overstaying their welcome, because I think the show clocked in at just under 3 hours, which is always good for viewers that then have to do a show. I think that Bayley has continued to look pretty good with this current version of her. And I thought, and I'll agree with Azan and a couple other commenters, I thought this was Piper's best match. I think she and Chelsea play so well off each other, as one is uh, the funny one and one's the straight one. And I think even though Chelsea got involved early and late, most of the focus was on Piper and her ability to wrestle. And I've been a fan of hers since she was in NXT UK and wrestling with the Scottish flag uniform that she would come out in. And I'm just glad to see her being taken seriously, because I think, for as long as I've been watching wrestling, those that didn't necessarily match the body type that the company was looking for tended to kind of be on the outskirts looking in. And I think, as Jim Ross says, and as I've used in speeches and talks before, when you maximize your minutes, it's hard to deny more minutes. And I thought she maximized her minutes pretty well tonight. And it was fun to watch her, again, being able to soak in her country. Like, I think for any of these folks who are international, to be able to do what you love in front of people that live where you're from, I mean, that energy can't be replicated. I'm getting kind of tingly now just saying that. But, I thought she did really well. I thought the match did what it needed to do. And, I think to Chelsea's credit, she got involved without making it about her. And she got involved to kind of give the crowd a couple of deep breath aha moments. But I think that speaks to the pro that she is, that she can be involved without being involved, if that makes sense. And of course, anytime that Charles Robinson can be the one to eject somebody, I get a kick out of that too. So.
Oh, absolutely. I just love it when, we finally get the refs standing up to, the heels getting, get out of here, like, I don't know. I almost miss the days where the refs were more characters in and of themselves, like Earl Hebner, like Earl, I don't know, like he would insert himself into a match. He didn't take gruff, I guess, without swearing, from anybody. So yeah, but is what it is, I guess. Don't know how I got off on a tangent about referees, but yeah, like I said, I think this is a pretty good match. I agree with you that it was a little bit of a lull in the match, or sorry, in the show rather. The crowd did kind of seem a little bit muted here and there. Admittedly, for the match, I was watching with the sound down. I got a phone call I had to take, so I was kind of like watching and talking at the same time. But so I was like halfway through the match, so I kind of did notice that at the beginning. But yeah, like I said, Piper. I think Piper's an excellent wrestler. She obviously, her size, things like that. She may get, a little bit of flack from certain people, but I don't know. I don't think it's really like necessarily founded. I think she's able to go out there and give a solid performance. As the giant that she tries to portray. And we get a comment from Jack Reeve saying that I think Chelsea winning Money in the Bank would be a great fit, not great in the ring, but as a good heel. As a British person, I was convinced that Drew would win. If you do a change for the venue, now is the time. I can't disagree again really with Drew. It would have been a nice feel good moment. Kelly would probably smack me if he could if I was to say this, but because he's a big fan of Chelsea Greens, but I don't dislike the idea of Chelsea winning Money in the Bank. I think she's right now kind of on fire with what she's doing. Like great character work. She really understands herself. Understands the character she's trying to portray. And plus, she also has the wrestling mind of Matt Cardona behind her too. So that's gotta help. Not that I'm saying there's always a good man behind a woman. I don't want it to be taken that way, but I'm just saying two good wrestling minds are better than one wrestling mind. That's how I wanted it to be taken. So there we go.
Well,
let's
listen, and I'll jump into the comments there too, Nate. As
yeah.
as Azan and others are talking about who's going to turn face and heel, and I think I'd have to agree with Andrew that that Piper's probably going to become the face. I just feel like she's too good natured, and it's so easy for Chelsea to be the hey, everybody, look how hot and this and that I am, and hate me for it. So I would respectfully disagree with Azan and respectfully agree with if there's going to be a split at some point, I think Piper would be the face.
I get to agree. I mean, we've seen Piper as a heel, we've seen Chelsea as a face, and I think Piper is just like more of a natural face. Personally, I think she can certainly pull off heel, absolutely pull off heel, but I know I like her more in that face role. She just, I mean, and this is, I guess this is another conversation for another show. If you want to talk about social media killing the business, or whatever. But you see the social media of Piper Niven. She's just such a sweetheart. Like I don't know. Not that like Chelsea isn't, but
Sure,
I don't
sure.
know for Chelsea's. I mean, I was watching an interview. It might have been Chris Van Vliet. I can never say his name without stumbling over it. Chris Van Vliet interview with Chelsea, where she's like she loves being the heel. So, and I think that kind of plays into her, or what we're talking about. She just seems like a much more natural heel than a face.
Yeah.
So I'd agree there. I'd agree
Well, and
there.
to your point too, social. I'm not jumping headfirst into social media killing the business, but with how accessible these performers are and these officials are, and how they carry on their social media personalities, you're 100% right. It's like, how am I supposed to buy into you wanting to rip people's heads off their shoulders when you're posting pictures playing with puppies and giving back to your community? It's like, like I get that you're a real person in real life, but it's hard to connect those
Yeah.
dots when then I see you on TV saying how you're ready to, cause havoc in a heelish way.
No, 100%, 100%. And not that I want to go on a tangent, but I'm known to do that from time to time. Um, if you haven't seen it yet, Undertaker's podcast, it was called 6 Feet Under with Mark Calloway or whatever it's called. You can catch it on YouTube. He just had Maven on as a guest, and a great conversation. They go into like the whole Royal Rumble, spot where he drop kicks Undertaker and all that. But one of the things that Undertaker brings up in that interview was how he brings up to people like Braun Strowman all the time, like, don't be posting pictures of yourself. You're the monster among men, but you're posting pictures and video of yourself like clowner. I think he was talking about like a picture of him like dressed up as a dog or something with kids. I don't remember exactly what the example was that he used, but it's essentially the same thing that you just said. It's like, you want to you protect the character, but then on the other hand, like they need to build their brand. I
Sure,
get it,
sure.
so it's certainly tough to keep.
Accessibility is a blessing and a curse.
Exactly. I think that, what, we're going to leave it at that. We're going to leave it at that. Blessing and a curse. We also have some chatter in the chat here about Tiffany Stratton potentially being a better fit for Money in the Bank. Jack Reed comes in and says Tiffany probably will win, but it fits Chelsea's gimmick of being an opportunist a bit more compared to some of the other choices. Tiff is a natural athlete type that can beat you without heat. That's very true. As as somebody that covers NXT and as somebody that helps us cover NXT and always watches NXT, both Kevin and I have seen Tiffany's like entire run so far, and I think we can both agree that she is a fantastic heel, fantastic athlete, and I'm glad to see her getting, kind of getting uh, like actual like great TV time on the main roster. Um, All right, let's keep the ball rolling here. Sami Zayn versus Chad Gable with Otis and Maxine in his corner. We saw Sami retain in 22 minutes. I really liked this match. I mean, Sami and Chad Gable, as far as actual like wrestlers with their wrestling ability, they're two of my favorites to watch. So putting them in a match together is great. It's thumbs up for me all around. So I loved the action here. Um, there was a really kind of like an oh shit moment when I think it was is it a belly to back suplex? I forget, but there's a suplex where Sami gave to Chad. Chad comes down right on the crown of his head. They played it on the replay a couple times. A little scary. I'm hoping he's fine. He seemed to be. It seemed to not really phase him at all. But that looked brutal. Um, I again, like I said, thought this was a great just wrestling match. I also like the inclusion of the rest of Alpha Academy. I couldn't think of Alpha Academy for a second. The rest of Alpha Academy, and Otis and Maxine kind of turning their back on Chad Gable, which, God, it's finally time for that to happen. They've been teasing it for, God, it feels like half a year now. It hasn't been. I think it's been a month or two, but it feels a lot
It's probably
longer.
been like 2.5 weeks, but it's like, it feels so long.
Yeah, right. It feels like it's been forever. So you're glad to finally see that happen, and for them to kind of stand up for themselves. He being Chad Gable has been a great bully, really, to his teammates in Alpha Academy. It's good to finally see them stand up, defend themselves, and I'm hoping this is maybe not. I don't know. I'm not just like hoping for the end of Alpha Academy, but I'm hoping that the rest of the group now splits off from Chad. They do their own thing. Whether that's a good or bad thing for them, we'll see. But it sounds like I think Chad, if I'm not mistaken, just signed a new deal with WWE. And if not, he's looking to. I can't remember if that was actually inked or not yet. I'm sure somebody will let me know in the comments. But it seems like he might have a decent singles run coming up, which it's about time. He's such a great performer. His character work is solid. I think where he's been defined down so much, Shorty G and all of that stuff, it may be difficult for some people to take him as a credible threat for a title, be it the Intercontinental title, world title, what have you. But I think it's doable. He's a legitimate athlete, Olympian and all of that. So one thing Azan just brought up, and this is something we've talked about on PWC Talks NXT before, is put Chad Gable with the Creed brothers. I would, it makes way too much sense not to do it. With the background that Chad Gable has, with like being an Olympic wrestler, with the Creed brothers and all of their amateur wrestling accolades, like it just makes sense. If you want Chad to have a couple heavies, turn the Creeds heel. If they're not heel right, I don't even remember what their alignment is right now. But
They're
turn
kind
the
of
Creeds.
tweeny. They're kind of tweeny.
Okay, maybe that's why I couldn't remember. But turn them heel. Like they're not doing like a whole heck of a lot. They're on TV, but not super often, right? Put them in. Like I think they're prime for a tag team like that. I think it's a great idea.
Well, and especially if you want the fans to take this sort of heel old school coach thing seriously, better to have him with two people who actually have amateur wrestling background and they can sort of all share a mentality than with one half of Heavy Machinery and Maxine. And so I think that could be a way to, as the commenters have been saying, talking about Shorty G, that's a way to further cleanse yourself of that awful period of his life. And let me also just say for Chad's, to his benefit, he is just an amazing athlete in general. And I think giving him a chance to have some direction in what he's doing, which from everything I've heard in general, Triple H and the sort of new administrative crew are giving more flexibility to the performers to sort of direct their characters. Let him be the serious person that he is. You don't get to be an Olympic level athlete by telling everybody shoosh and all that. So I am hopeful that even if this means he takes a couple weeks off, because the loss was just so devastating. Um, and sort of then in the next week after that, you see him talking to the Creed brothers behind the scenes and start planting seeds. I think that could be a very cool retooled Alpha Academy. Um, and then you've got a faction that can then sort of go up with any of them, really. So
Yeah, I mean, with their size and everything, I mean, like, they're, I mean, with their size anyway, they're even believable against the bloodline. I don't know story wise if like people would necessarily buy into it, but if you were a casual viewer like tuning in, uh, you might think that they had a chance. Um, thank you to not you, Kevin, but the other Kevin that's watching right now. Kevin, I believe it's Tom's, but they just chimed in, letting me know that where was it? I just lost it.
yeah, the
Oh,
Bleacher Report.
yeah, the
Yeah.
Bleacher Report. There was he got a notification, Bleacher Reports, a while ago saying that Gable had signed a new contract. I thought so. I thought I read something that he had signed, um, but this goes back to my memory and it failing me sometimes. So I didn't want to like say it definitively. Um, we also have we got a talking about the Creed brothers here. We got Dr. Ross chiming in saying that the Creeds need to take the belts off of Awesome Truth ASAP. Um, I don't know. I'm such an unabashed R-Truth fan that I just want to see her. I just want to, as long as R-Truth is on my screen, I'm happy. Whether he's got a title or not, whatever. But I guess I don't necessarily disagree that the belt should be taken off of them. I still love R-Truth as tag team champion. Come and hang out with us over at Reddit, reddit.com/r/truth. We like to pretend we're R-Truth and make fun of the people that think it's a conspiracy subreddit. So there we go. That's like literally my favorite place on Reddit. Uh, there we go. So now you guys got a little glimpse into my life,
I was
what
gonna
I do
say,
in my own
geez, we
time,
just learned little tidbits about you each time.
right? All right, let's
Well,
keep.
before you
Oh,
move on,
sorry.
Nate, one
Oh
thing I
yeah, yeah,
pointed
yeah.
out, and
Please,
it's
please.
such an, I imagine it's a very inconsequential moment, but I did make a note in my notes, and maybe I'm the only one, and we'll see if the commenters saw it too or not. But am I the only one who saw Hogan carrying Miss Elizabeth out the way that Otis carried Maxine out after she got trampled and run over? That is where my brain went immediately from when the Mega Powers broke up
Yeah,
officially was when Hogan chose Elizabeth over Macho Man, and then that led to the next year's WrestleMania and all that. So maybe maybe this is our Hogan Miss Elizabeth moment where next week Chad starts yelling at Otis for why would you choose her over me, and then he finally decks him in the face and we get the break and can move on.
I didn't think about that. Now, granted, that was I wasn't watching wrestling back then. It might have been, yeah, definitely before my time.
Oh, listen,
Definitely before my
that's
time.
when I was like
But
full blown ugly crying watching wrestling because as a young kid, like that's how invested I was how could this be happening? Oh man, I can remember it
yeah,
vividly.
yep. No, I came in shortly after WrestleMania 14 because I had a couple friends that went to WrestleMania 14 in Boston, living in New England, and they kind of got me into wrestling, and the rest is, as they say, is history. But no, I didn't necessarily think about that, but that's a good. I mean, it's a good comparison. Um, I don't know. I mean, it's not necessarily the same like grandeur as Hulk Hogan and Macho Man, Otis and Chad Gable, but I think in terms of the story anyway, I think it's certainly a good comparison. Um, all right, just looking at okay, cool. We'll keep going here. We had the second match of the night: Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill versus Isla Dawn and Alba Fyre. Versus Shayna Baezler and Zoey Stark, triple threat for the WWE Women's Tag Team titles. Again, this saw Isla Dawn and Alba Fyre going over in 12 minutes to capture the women's tag titles. For some reason, I'm forgetting Isla Dawn's nationality. Is it? It's not
No, they're both
Scottish, right?
Scottish.
They are both Scottish. Okay, I was like, I'm again questioning it. I thought so, but I didn't necessarily say it. So again, okay. cool moment. This was the one title switch we did see here tonight. Very cool moment for them to to actually get this opportunity in their hometown. And I think it's even it's probably a really good feel good moment for Alba Fyre. Her mom was tragically killed in a car accident not that long ago. I think it was a week ago or so.
Very
Um,
recent.
It was very, very recent. I know there was talk about it here on the Torch, obviously, and things like that. So first off, thoughts out to her because that's terrible. Especially where, if I read correctly, I believe her mom was actually like traveling to see her wrestle. So it was either to see her wrestle or from seeing her wrestle. So you know, horrible, horrible thing. But it definitely a feel good moment here for for Alba Fyre especially, but for both of them, being able to win the titles in their motherland. Um, you know, I I'm I personally am I love Alba Fyre and Isla Dawn. Have you know since Alba Fyre was Kaylee Ray in NXT UK, and Isla Dawn. I didn't actually really see Isla Dawn until she came over into NXT. So I didn't always keep up with NXT UK, but still, big fans of what they do. I really like them together. Um, I've got a lot of friends kind of in the goth scene, so like kind of speak to me in that respect. So glad to see them, kind of get this moment. Um, Shayna and Zoey, I didn't really think they had a chance of winning, but man, I really would love to see them build Shayna back up to being the threat that she used to
You
be
and
in
me both.
NXT heyday. Um, and then Bianca Belair, Jade Cargill. I think they've been a great tag team so far. But I'm wondering if this may wind up leading to a split for them. Granted, neither one of them really took place in the finish, if I'm remembering correctly, so it may not. But we get a comment. That's the word I was looking for. Comment from Rude Dog saying, "Are Jade and Bianca going to win it back soon or split?" I don't know. I'm assuming they're going to want a rematch for the titles, especially where they weren't involved in the the decision. But again, they're also faces, so I'm wondering, like, I'm sure they can do that. Go to go to the powers that be. Why blanking on his name? Adam Pierce. It's Adam Pierce, and try to, like, or not Adam Pierce. Well, either Adam Pierce or
Nick Aldis, either way.
Nick Aldis. I'm like former NWA champion. What's his name? But they could go to either one of them where it's tag titles and try to claim a rematch. But I think it's kind of harder for them to do that as a face and still come off as being faces. So we'll see. We'll kind of see where it goes. I'm not sure if we'll see a split just yet. I'm waiting for that split though. I really, really want to see Cargill versus Bianca Belair in a one-on-one singles match. I have since Cargill was doing her thing in AEW. That was I forget who I was talking about it with. I forget a lot of things. I can't remember if it was on PWT Talks NXT or if it was just somebody I was talking with in my personal life. But I remember talking about wanting to see Cargill at some point jump to WWE and specifically see her in a match against Belair, because there are a lot of similarities. People have been drawing similarities between the two of them for years, which I think was a good reason they put them together in NXT, in WWE rather. But man, once that match actually happens, I'm gonna be super excited about it. I still think Bianca will probably be the face for it. I can't see her turning heel. I feel like she's too much of a natural baby face, but I feel like Cargill could probably heal it up pretty well.
Well, and listen, this could also be a case where they can both stay faces. I think you could build the competitive athlete angle enough to say these are just two women that realize they're both alphas and one wants to see who's the bigger alpha.
Kind of like Nathan Frazier and Axiom down in NXT, right?
Sure.
Yeah. No,
and I think too, and I forget, let me make sure I'm commenting the right person. I agree with YouTube user where I think I don't think there's going to be any
Not
split.
that one.
Yeah, sorry, talking about Jade. Yeah. Although yes, Macho was hung out to dry in that match as well. But I don't think there's a rush to split. I think, as evidence in tonight's match, and several of Jade's more recent ones, there are still some not lapses in timing, but she's still getting her sea legs under. She's still getting the WWE style down, and so, to be honest, and there was a lot of chatter this week on the Fix and in other weekly podcasts with Rich Fan and with I think Bruce Mitchell, yes, maybe, on the flagship, that the titles were kind of becoming a crutch for Jade and Bianca, where they are just they're so much more physically imposing than every other women's tag team in that division, that like you were slowly getting to the point of, without any shenanigans, who would you realistically expect to beat them? And so I think now they can still do that. They're going to still do the tag team thing, but now each of them can be a single with the other kind of coming out to support, and you can give Jade some time to do some singles matches, get some more of that timing and all of that under their belt, and really then you can start building towards the, hey, you know what? We're both really good. Why don't we see who's better, and that sort of thing. But I don't think they're quite ready for that yet.
Yeah, no, I hear you there. And actually, I'm glad Dr. Ross brought this up, because I forgot to bring this up while we were talking about the match. But there was a spot where Jade was in, I believe it was a headlock.
It was in a Kirifuna clutch. It was
Okay,
earlier in
thank
the
you.
match.
Yeah, from Shayna Baezler, Kirifuda clutch, and you could kind of see the referee was to her back, Jessica Carr was to her back, and you kind of see her like tap out just a little bit, just kind of like this. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see my hand against her arm. The referee didn't see it, but they did make a big deal about it on commentary. Like, did she just tap? Oh my God, did she just tap? But it was very, very, very subtle. I'm sure it was a planned spot. I don't think she was just going, "Hey, I can't actually breathe." But
Or she couldn't actually breathe and was kind of trying to let Shayna know, hey, you've got this in a little too deep,
right,
and not realizing that's the sign to say I give up.
Yeah, because that was like, that's what went through my mind while watching this, was like, okay, either like that was so subtle and she really wasn't selling it like super much, like Jade really wasn't selling that much. So it was either like a, hey, I really can't breathe, or like it was supposed to be a weird, like a tap out type spot. So depending on what that was, it was a little bit of a weird spot, as Dr. Ross says. I'm kind of wondering you know, if maybe that leads to some sort of dissension between Bianca and Jade. I can't really. If it was somebody other than Bianca, I could see them going up to Jade and being like, "Hey, what was with that?" But I can't see Bianca with her character necessarily doing that. But we'll see. We'll
Well,
see
and
if
I
this
did
comes
see
up.
them walk as Alba and Isla were celebrating.
Yep.
Jade and Bianca did leave the ring arm in arm, or like over each other's shoulder. So if there was any thought of dissension, I didn't see it in the way they were exiting from ringside. So
No, fair enough. Fair enough. Um, Andrew says that he saw that too, being the weird tap out spot, but it had to be inadvertent. It had to be inadvertent, but obvious enough where the announcers had to talk about it. So there you go. Um, All right, let's go to our last match here, which was Cody Rhodes versus AJ Styles I Quit match for the undisputed title. Cody continues his story as WWE undisputed champion in 28 minutes. I thought this was a fantastic opener to the show. I mean, both Cody and AJ are, fantastic, fantastic performers. Two of the better performers in the WWE as a whole. I'm not going to say the best, because that's always subjective, but they're certainly up there as far as I'm concerned. Um, I I thought this was great. I mean, they used the I Quit gimmick, pretty good. They starting to wrestle, kind of out through the crowd into the backstage area, coming back out through Gorilla. We saw Cody get a little bit of color in the match, which I always question with Cody, like, is it real? Did you get it hard way? No, I don't know.
Well, he was hiding enough behind the barricade that he probably.
Right. That's kind of what my thought is too. It's Cody, so yeah, there you go. Cody or Moxley, you're gonna probably see blood. But yeah, no, I thought they told a great story here. This was one of the matches, like I said earlier in the show, I think to kick off the show, a buddy of mine who's not a wrestling fan happened to swing by, and he sat down and watched this match in its entirety with me, and it sucked him in, and he's asking me all these questions about what's going on and who everybody was and things like that, like really drew him in. Um, uh, like I said, they told a great kind of underdog story. It was actually one of the things that he mentioned to me. He's like, is the champ supposed to be the underdog, or is the champ supposed to be beating everybody? I was like, well, depends on who the champion is. It all depends on the character. But Cody is the classic underdog, and I think they got that over really well here. There were certainly times where it looked like AJ may win. I really didn't think there was a chance in hell that AJ was going to take the title off of Cody. But there were certainly some good near falls where it may have happened. Um, the crowd super into this, um, uh, putting American crowds to shame. I like the fact that they brought Cody's mother in. She was sitting right front row. She had a lot of involvement in the match. Well, I wouldn't say a lot of involvement, but I mean, you saw her. Cody come out during his entrance and say hi to his mom. AJ started flapping his gums in his mother's direction, Cody's mother's direction, and she wound up smacking him in the face. I think three
times. And let me just tell you,
times.
I was talking to my wife about it because she missed that match, but it was almost one of those where either before the match or like in that moment, AJ was like, "You can seriously hit me. Like, I want you to hit me," because it was first kind of that like meek little shove, and then she hits the first one, and she's like, "Ooh, that felt kind of good," because you kind of see her smile, and then she gives him two more, and I don't know if he was expecting those two, but if he wasn't, it worked well for the story.
Yeah, no, I agree. I really agree. Like it, and I mean, I feel like she's been around wrestling enough where she probably knows, but I don't know. I don't really know much about his mother. They kind of been talking about her a little bit, but don't know a whole heck of a lot about her. In what her knowledge, I guess, of the business would be. Although it's got to be good. Let's see. We have a Rude Dog coming in saying that this match probably should have headlined. It was a hard act to follow. After watching every match tonight, I agree. It probably should have headlined, but I understand wanting to have CM Punk come out at the very end. If you're booking the show, you want CM
Well,
Punk.
never mind CM Punk, but you got to have Drew, who's been the promo face of the whole show, be the last one that everybody sees.
Yep. No, exactly. And Dr. Ross coming in saying that he thought that, or I don't know if it's a he, so I would say they, the doctor. The doctor thought that there was a chance Mama Rhodes would have been forced to literally throw in the towel. I kind of did too. Like I thought maybe she would have pleaded for the match to be stopped or something like that. I didn't necessarily think about throwing in the towel per se, but I kind of thought that maybe there was going to be some camera shot coming to her or something where she's like stop, something along those lines. I'm glad they didn't. I feel like this was a much better way to go. Have her kind of get in, smack AJ around, especially with some of the stuff that AJ has been saying leading up to this. I think that was a real feel good moment. And you know what? Like, not that, I mean, I have stepped into the ring before, but I'm not a wrestler. But if I was, I think it'd be so cool to have my mom come in and just smack around my opponent. Like, my mom she looks so much like Mama Rhodes. She's just got white hair instead of the brown or red hair. But looks so similar. Just tiny little woman. But it'd be so cool to just see her smack somebody around. So
well, midway through the match, Brandy tweeted that she was going to let Libby watch the match, and she's like, "But then Daddy got blood, and Mimi was getting pushed around, and I thought we can watch some more Bluey for right now. And I thought that was
Yeah.
a fun live tweet as the thing was going on.
Oh, who tweeted that again? I didn't catch that.
Brandy Rhodes.
Okay. That's great. That's absolutely great. Tech Nation chimes in saying that throwing in the towel wouldn't matter in an I Quit match, and where I completely agree with you, WWE is also the company that stopped the Hell in a Cell once. So, yeah, I mean, granted, it was still under a different regime. I don't know if Triple H necessarily do that, but
Well, but I tell you what,
yeah.
I was very impressed, and the commentary pointed it out, and the ref was on his game, that with Cody passed out, you couldn't technically say I quit.
That's a good point.
And so I don't know that in years past that would have been caught. And then, and here was my only, if I have to pick any nit in this match, I feel like the AJ getting the bottle of water to wake him up spot had to have been talked about, or maybe it wasn't, because if it was, Cody got up way too quick, because you now no longer need the water to wake you up because you're already trying to stand up. And so either that was uncommunicated and AJ thought he was going to milk it a little bit longer, or Cody just got up too quick and sort of made that point a little superfluous at that point.
Yeah, no, I hear you there. I can't disagree with you. But outside of that little nitpick, like I can't really find fault in the match. I think this was a great match. If this wasn't in Scotland and Drew McIntyre, CM Punk, this probably should have headlined. But as we both pointed out, CM Punk, Drew McIntyre, it makes sense for that match to go on last and from a booking perspective. So I get it. But yeah, so I think with all of that, that's going to bring us to the end of our show, guys. Kevin, thank you very much. I'm glad we were finally able to get together and do this, man.
Like Drew and CM Punk at SummerSlam, it took a little bit of time, but we finally got to our match, and here we are.
Absolutely. We finally got there. So I'm Nate Lindberg. You can follow the things that I do at natelindberg.com. You can follow me on the Twitter or X or whatever we're calling it, at Nate Lindberg. I'm usually one of the co-hosts of PWT Talks NXT right here on the Daily Cast. So you can feel free. We're also, I think it's just Wrestling Night in America and PWT Talks NXT doing shows on YouTube. So feel free after NXT goes off the air to come hang out, because we'd love to hang out. We're always welcome you guys to come and give us your thoughts about what's going on in NXT. So, Kevin, anything to plug?
Well, you can find me all over the Twitter X at KP Cattani. And Nate and I think we click well because we share some common interests, and gaming and all of that is one of them. So come talk gaming with me. Come talk sport and sport business with me. My professional career is a sport management professor. Or let's talk emotional intelligence. I know Nate and I have that in common as well, with therapy and brain health and all that. So anytime you guys would like to engage with me on any of those things, or wrestling, we're here to do that as well.
That's right. And not only that, but we have a 647-day snap streak going. That's the longest
it is
I've
a brilliant snap streak.
Yes, I don't know if it's the longest one you've ever had going, but it's the longest one I've ever had going. So there we go. All right, guys. This has been Wrestling Night in America. Filling in for Greg Parks, I'm Nate Lindberg. Come check us out here on the Daily Cast, PWT Talks NXT, on Tuesday after NXT goes off the air. And to steal the outro from my co-host there, Kelly Wells, we'll see you in 7. Take care.